All right, welcome to the end of the week summary, sponsored by Woo. Big thank you to Woo. If you would like to support me and my contributions, then please consider signing up at the referral link that you'll see in the tweet supporting this, or down below in the description or the channel if you're just viewing this through YouTube. But a big thank you to those guys, very much appreciated. And let's dive into what has been a mixed week. So a mixed week in terms of what we've seen from crypto and from equities, and all led by the dollar strength. So for many months, dollar bulls have been incorrect in their thought process as equities have ripped higher, and the dollar has continually dipped lower. Dollar bulls and equity bears have been in a bad place in 2023. However, that situation has now changed, and that broken clock is finally right. And we're in a situation where the dollar strength cannot be ignored. And especially after the reaction we saw today, it was a very important reaction that we had on the dollar today. So we've traded down below, as you can see here, and that kind of really kick-started this impulse and momentum that we've been seeing on the dollar. So through July, end of the summer here, we started this reclaim of the bottom of 101s, and we've just been driving up relentlessly since. Now, getting above this 105 has been a very important feat for the dollar. It has been achieved, and today we've seen a reaction back into that level on the lower time frame, and a pretty solid reaction that we've seen as well. So selling off over the last kind of 24 hours or so, big reaction back down towards this 105.60 level, and then a solid move away that we've seen today. From my perspective, this weekly picture, you just can't fade this as it stands. So where we are right now with the dollar continually making lower highs, lower lows, okay, this is the first higher high in this market structure snap. Weekly RSI still looks really good for continuation. Awesome oscillator now flipping positive as well. And again, that doesn't usually bode particularly well. And the monthly is in a very solid position on the higher time frames as well. This hold up at the 50 level, starting to see an impulse away. And obviously this being the close of the monthly as well. Going to be a really solid monthly for the dollar, and I'd expect anything down into 105 now basically to be a buying opportunity. 104s maybe if we start to see some aggression, but I think that probably plays into the thought process in terms of the wider markets as it stands, where really the dollar needs to be back inside this range and not re-escaping for the equity situation to look different. I've covered off over the course of this week and last the concerns with equities, and we'll flick to the Nasdaq quickly now to kind of break that down and the thought process around that as well. But this needs to be back inside here and controlled inside here for the overall thought process of mine personally to change from being more bearish on the crypto and stock side into, okay, now I can afford to kind of be bullish and consider some of the upside charts in the equities and crypto space. I think for now, this still remains the beast that you cannot short. And I think you have to acknowledge and appreciate the strength that it has shown in the escape that it has finally made from this 105 region. And again, the flipping structure that it's made on the weekly as well. So we'll dive to the Nasdaq, then we'll head back across into the crypto stuff, and we'll kind of do the whole correlation thing between those markets. Not that you're interested in this trade, so I will quickly go ahead and hide this as it stands. Actually, no, just leave it up. It doesn't really matter for the purposes of the discussion. It will help contribute to the thought process. So, where we are here is this is the first time that the Nasdaq has broken daily structure in a long time. I think that was my last video, was covering off this thought process in a bit more detail. So this structure here, the low finally snapping, and this price action just being the price action around the low, but the significant event having already occurred in the break of the low. Now, the daily RSI still supports further downside, and I think what we've seen over the course of the last 24 hours is bullish divergence is playing out from the grind down, and us seeing a squeeze back to the upside. I don't think enough has changed in order to kind of flip that logic. So I had a few questions in Friend Tech actually today, which is about, kind of like closing down puts, whether or not I think that the market has changed to a kind of a more bullish overall environment. And I simply don't believe that to be the case at this moment in time. Like I said, get the dollar back inside that range. Sure, I'm much more likely to have those discussions and be of those beliefs than just seeing where we are as of right now. I think what's happened from a psychological perspective in the crypto markets as well is that we've seen some green and we've seen some pretty decent moves over the last 24 hours in the equity side of things. And that has shifted people suddenly to thinking, oh shit, maybe that was a low. Maybe that was a bottom. Maybe that is the turnaround point. Maybe the indexes do rally again. And again, I think the important thing is the market structure is broken. This is a downtrending market. Yes, it's going to bounce. Yes, it's going to move back to the upside. Does that change what has happened? No, it does not. So it doesn't really matter that we've seen a bounce. I think it's just what we're seeing now is the psychological response to the bounce and the green days, which is that you then start to think, oh shit, maybe that is the low and I should be long on everything and I should close down my puts. This just takes one red day and, things are caught up again. So as it stands right now, I think that we did a nice lower time frame sweep on this region here, so you can see this rundown of all of the lower highs that we are having through this region. We saw the impulse today and a very strong negative reaction on the Nasdaq to clearing above this level. I still think there's probably a little bit more juice in this. I've kind of been saying I think these markets have upside. That's pretty much led by the divergence we were creating on the way down here, but I think these markets have upside, and I've pitched for the 15,000 push for the Nasdaq, just because I think that's a nice level to move back into. So I think pushing the round number of 15,000, getting back up towards this zone here would be a nice region for the Nasdaq. And again, we'll probably go a long way in terms of flipping people more into the bullish thought process. Let's do crypto and dive into that. All right, so BTC. Good Lord, the price action. So if you've made money this week, congratulations. That was no easy feat in terms of what has happened. You should give yourself a pat on the back for doing that successfully. These two areas of price action are very similar, and this is what I called out when basically I held my hands up and said, I've got no fucking clue which direction we're going to go in. Logic dictates that we've swept everything here, so therefore we continue lower. However, this is crypto, and who the fuck knows what's going to happen, because just look at this. We did exactly the same shit over here, and then we just continued higher anyway. And this is the play out we got. So traded straight back down to clear out everything from the breakout. Huge reaction, grind up, impulse into fresh highs, another fresh high created here, and here we are in a potential chop fest. I just tweeted this out before to say basically if it follows this pattern, then we're now going to go through this process in terms of the weekend. We know that weekend volatility has been lower anyway for a good while now, and so something like this would hardly come as a surprise to anybody, I think, if this is the way that things end up panning out through this zone. So good areas here in terms of comparison. I don't really care too much about this. This is really just tweet content versus it being anything that's actionable. But the higher time frames are actually pretty encouraging for BTC through here. And again, just to continue into the upside, I still don't think it changes anything. I still think the important thing has been the weekly market structure break on BTC with that slight close at the lows. So therefore, I still think that anything that trades higher is still lower high territory. It's still short squeeze territory, and it's still going to trap. And I think the price targets for BTC on the upside are relatively simple as well through this zone. I think if BTC can get through this 27.5 zone over here, because we can see previously that this has caused quite a lot of trouble for BTC. If we just map out this zone here, we've already had one move into this broad region, but we know that this area here has been a good support base for BTC and then started to become the lockdown point through here as well. So also, if you notice, there have been two very strong moves all the way through this region. So I kind of like these as well. When we have strong moves that pierce straight through a region, it kind of adds to the significance in terms of, what's going on through levels like this. So if we get through here, then I think it's probably heading up towards the 29,000s. I think this is the breakdown retest. This would be the area that we would probably start to run out of juice again on BTC, but would be a sizable move. This would absolutely be a sizable move to have captured if it does make that move up here. And then downside, obviously, we're just looking for the break of 25,000. And I really don't want to speculate on what happens below that. I just think that volatility will come through if we do get the breakdown. I don't want to start claiming 22, 18, 15, whatever. I don't really care what the value is. I just think there will be volatility attached to a breakdown of 25. Where that stops, I've got no fucking idea. And I don't really care about having an idea through that region. It's simply a case of I know that this is structurally very important, and I think even based on the price action you can see down here highlights the significance of keeping BTC away from this low. And so this is where I think the downside momentum really drives through if there is to be a break of this and a negative reaction. Now, ETH has been a nicer market. Certainly over the last 48 hours, it's made this fresh high, and it's doing the right things through here. So these are just some rough areas to be pitching for here on ETH, and we've got 1655 as the level now that ETH will want to hold. So the 4-hour time frame is a nice time frame to keep monitoring for this. Of course, we may sweep below the level, but this is really where ETH wants to stay above. That 1650 zone, 1640 has always been a nightmare for ETH to try and get back through. This has been the hold-up point basically since the start of September. So to now be trading back above here come the month end is a very, very good situation for ETH to be in. Upside targets, little supply region here at 1700, round number, expect us to run into that. And then if we end up getting some serious upside momentum, then I think you're looking back into the 1815 plus zone, which is back into the retest here, equivalent to BTC at 29,000. So ETH with a very clean technical setup. I think it looks very easy in terms of what you're looking for, upside targets, and your kind of risk reward that you can attach to the trade through a region like this. The concerning side, obviously, from crypto is that dollar is still very strong, and we know that that trending market isn't one that we can kind of easily fade. The positives for crypto are that, historically speaking, October is a very good month for crypto. I think there's only like one red month in the last 10 years for crypto in October. So it is historically a significant month for potential upside. Whether or not that's going to be a transition into this year, who knows? But historically speaking, that is something that we can add into the mix as a potential positive. I think if we start to see the dollar drop down back inside that range, start to see some weakness, start to see some changes in the landscape, then yeah, sure, we can start getting a little bit more excited about that potential upside for BTC and ETH, and obviously alts as well. And one more downside I should probably throw in is that we've been discussing the daily bull divs on some of these markets, things like AVAX and LDO, that were still putting in bullish divergences that hadn't really yet played out, and they are now in the process of playing out. So there are a few times that we get to in the crypto markets where we have this like universal equilibrium of the way that markets look. And we haven't had that for the last few weeks, because we've had some markets that have been strong. We've had some markets that have been weak but have been producing bull divs on the way down. So they're making fresh lows, but they're doing so on reducing momentum. We've had markets that have been going sideways. We're now moving towards a situation where we're starting to see more market alignment. And in that, what I mean is there is more of a one-directional trade opportunity coming up, because we now have bullish divergences playing out, squeezes / retests happening, and potentially BTC and ETH reaching significant higher time frame bearish retest territory. And when we get a situation when it comes to crypto, and obviously the same applies to equities as well, when we get a situation that basically we look at any chart and we're like, well, it doesn't have a bull div anymore, it's now played out. Oh, this is doing a bearish retest. Oh, this is forming a bearish divergence. we start to kind of get more conviction, or at least, kind of solidify our thoughts around the direction that we should be trading the market. I don't think we're there quite yet, because I still think there's upside in these markets left. Fingers crossed. But when you do get that situation where you get this market-wide blanket approach where everything just looks as though it's played out divergences, it's done its short squeeze, it's retesting bearish levels, then it usually makes the trades quite simple for you to execute. It sort of simplifies the logic of what's going on. We don't have that right now. We haven't had it for a good few weeks. But now we're starting to see even these outliers play out their bullish divergences and make these drives towards the upside. I think we're nearing that single market decision mode where we've got equilibrium across the markets and everything looks nicely balanced, but it's all saying essentially the same thing. Might be doing it in different ways, but it's saying the same thing. So for now, I think, the summary is dollar is a beast, and we don't want to be on the wrong side of that. We will keep our fingers crossed. Despite me being bearish in terms of thought process, I much prefer it when price goes higher. So we've got to keep an eye on the dollar falling back inside the range, really, to start changing the thought process on the way that crypto looks as a whole here and the way that equities are going to look. If that does not happen and the dollar starts pushing up into fresh highs and defends this 105.60 level, then I think it's lower prices for crypto and I think it's lower prices for equities. Lower time frame, I think, still looks good for upside. Maybe crypto will take advantage of this weekend in order to try and push higher and, take control of things and do those squeezes while traditional markets are sleeping. But I still think that lower time frame, you can make a decent case for continuation to the upside for a lot of crypto markets. And even ETH in here, if you lose 16.15, you drop back inside this range again, then obviously I think you change the thought process there. If it holds at 16.50, then I think you can continue to aim for the upside. And why not take advantage of that when crypto is putting in those moves as it is right now? So I think that's it for this week. I think that's a pretty decent summary in terms of where we are on the higher time frames and the correlation between the markets without diving too much into all sorts of other shit that is far more boring than even the dollar can drum up. That's a dog shit market, but fuck me, if we're going to start getting to fucking yields and bonds and all sorts of other shit, then it is going to be a real snooze fest. So we'll keep things relatively light with just the dollar correlation with everything else, and a little look into the way that equities have responded this week, and obviously crypto markets, which, touch wood, have done very well in the face of the equity selling as well. They have preserved themselves very, very well and have performed significantly better over the course of this week. So at least a positive for crypto through that. But thank you very much for joining me. And once again, thank you to Woo for sponsoring the content. And if you'd like to sign up at Woo, I'd recommend using the ref link for a nice 50-50 referral split with me. And I'll see you on the next one.